consequentialism because all impacts evolve into utilitarian considerations. Harms. Tax havens perpetuate neo-colonial oppression. Harrington 16. Among countries serving as offshore financial centers, many reformer colonial states tremendously fiscally viable, becoming a tax haven has unexpected cause. Precipitous economic and political and social declines have occurred often when the finance first strikes a country, but they are increasingly co-opted by international elites who become organized around the interests of people who don't live the detriment of those who do the services produced. Protect common causes wealth with the richest never among local producers and high capacity for self-governance and social cohesion, as well as the development of infrastructure and institutions. This has led to increasing economic fragility along with political corruption and social decline, as evidenced by rising crime and violence. Tax havens increase inequality, fuel corruption, undermine collection of title tax revenues, distort the global economy, and undermine the rule of law. Picketing all 16. Tax havens are no use on one person, increase inequality, they secretly brought by tax havens, fuels corruption, undermines countries' ability to collect their fair share of taxes, while often hit by tax funding, corporates are proportionally the biggest losers, missing out at least 170 billion of tax annually as a result. Territories allowing assets to be hidden in shell companies, rich profits to be built by companies that no business there, or distorting the working of the global economy by hiding illicit activities and allowing mission individuals or corporations to operate by different rules. They also set the rule of law as a vital ingredient for economic success. And with the LCC spreading tax havens, we need new global agreements. Rigged tax systems generate wealth inequality, instability, and societal collapse. Soul 16. The Panama Papers leak provides a window into offshore systems of total lawlessness that fuel corporate governments and undermine the rule of law across the globe. The large amounts of untaxed national wealth inevitably lead to income inequality and higher government deficits and turning popular discontents. Eventually, these ineffective tax systems can lead to violent revolutions and complete societal collapse. Government sweet support for taxes. The challenge has always been taxing the rich and access with the political system. The Panama Papers reinforce our resentment and lack of trust, which is already driving the popularity of candidates such as Donald Trump, who seem to encourage political violence, whether we like it or not. This background of political instability is upon us. The stakes of a very transparent tax system are very high. Wealth inequality obliterates social mobility, resulting in neo-feudalism. Harrington 17. Concentration of capital and the increasingly small group of people in these economic systems all spying and swinging back into feudalism, where wealth is set up generation after generation amongst very small group of families, often produces a study which they cover out people who exceed 7% of 50% of humanity. In 2010, that number was about 320 people. The inheritance in the U.S. has not been effect up to the fifth or sixth generation. Meanwhile, most Americans, especially African Americans, have nothing but debt when they die. Advocacy. Text. The United States should codify a reporter's right to protect the identity of confidential sources by adopting a law on the model of Belgium. Vanessaro 7. In Belgium, law with fraud protection journalists and people they work with having disclosed the identity or any documents or information that we reveal their sources, the type of information given to them, the author, text of the documents, or the content of information, surveillance or searches not used by best protection journalists cannot be prosecuted for refusing to testify. The protections can only be overridden by a judge in case of leading terrorism or serious the physical integrity of the person that information is crucial report is that it cannot be obtained any other way. He continues. It defines journalists as any self-employed or non-self-employed person, any natural person who is regularly directly to the acquisition, editing, production, and dissemination of information by way of a media of the public interest. Solvency. Source protection is key to international public interest journalism. UNESCO 17. Internationally, source protection laws are at a risk of erosion. Sources require anonymity to protect them from physical, economic, or professional reprisals. While professional journalistic practices entails healthy sources of verification cooperation, confidential sources are key without confidential sources of any acts of investigative or storytelling and wanting to investigate journalism. Project offshore leads maintain from the surface. Without this chilling practice, likely is another effective media outlets may become less likely to, or seek to use information to find additional confidentiality with shrinkage of public interest content. Confidentiality is key to preserving vital intelligence from whistleblowers over Marlborough 2018. The Panama Papers revealed how dictators, drug cartels, mafia clans, and weapons dealers from regimes like North Korea and Iran use offshore shell companies to hide their shady business transactions. Investigations based on the papers brought down prime ministers, triggered mass demonstrations, and launched criminal trials around the world. Laws have changed, and oversight committees have been adopted in numerous countries. Health tax authorities recover several $100 million in unpaid taxes and penalties. A whistleblower constantly drug dealers, dictators, and organized crime figures his life, his job, and his family still at risk because stock corruption decided to try to remedy it. Without whistleblowers, we wouldn't know the details of the changing elements of the financial industry. We would be the drug national intelligence services, laboratory, Israel's secret nuclear program, Cambridge Analytica, whistleblowers, and marginalized. Shane threatened Snowden, lives in forced exile. Then he spent years in prison. CIA employed confirmed that the U.S. structural prisoner who was a prison embassy contractor is facing multi-year prison sentence for informing about Russia's attempts to manipulate the U.S. election. This treatment is a signal to others who might come forward to be ostracized, sued, imprisoned, ridiculed, and intimidated. You will have to go to hiding. They deserve to be protected. Press notoriety, chills, ensures tax avoidance and evasion through naming and shaming. And also 17. The impact of the Paradise Papers goes beyond institutions of governance and behavioral too. By proving that a huge daily from big financial firm wasn't a one-off event, ICIJ's reporting has shown all use of offshore structures for their financial information to be compromised. Already, the expectation and secrecy around offshoring is vital. The Paradise Papers are proof of a repeatable model of structural employees of offshoring firms know with greater certainty that they can anonymously figure reports received and translated into public interest journalism. It's easy to copy digital information and transfer it. Leaks are vital maintaining a local coalition necessary to ensure reports by keeping international tax evasion, public corruption, high-profile issues. Sleeper and Wigan 16. The Panama Papers may help reinforce the policy directory for more regulation and information sharing just as policies and multiple action in the EU and the CDC brings the profile of the issue tax evasion makes states more than come together to tackle it. Greater transparency will often figure out the element of the firms while you can bring this crap and CC. U.S. could check out what even states to Delaware, Nevada, and the federal level health officer interest in jurisdictions can be curtailed. There were new documents will also lead to new fights. The pit that we see policymakers against the data economy leads to remote tax experts, including the most basic accountancy firms who protect their wealth and practice global tax battles with professional experts, policymakers, civil society activists, for long-term private sector experts has set the agenda. The Panama Papers could help build a new potential alliance between policymakers and activists to attack against them. Leaks accelerate reform efforts and international cooperation. Area 16. The Panama Papers lead to the world investigation by more than 100 media outlets and political figures sleep and then Islamic State can't stop them to hide assets offshore the African and the people police and other hemispheres scale of police build out multinational companies and millions sweetheart with Luxembourg who avoid paying tax in the country where they operate before Luxembourg tax organization was negotiated for 7 years at the top of the official now is 7 months. Global investigative networks are key, means the U.S. must participate, be in endorsing scene arguing the context of Finnish media. The International Consortium for Investigative Journalism will not hinder further material. Neoorganization organizations working with the documents have committed to ICAG's position to principle of source confidentiality, ensures that organizations that government can reveal major interests of the Bureau of Health and out of an foreign journals participating in the project. Finnish journals will longer hand over any information to third party and the material would presumably be immediately revoked. This would jeopardize the chance of Finnish journalists participating in international investigative networks who would involve a journalist from a country where there's a risk that officials can in and receive confidential information. Framing. Our responsibility to the other means that we have to gesture in two directions, meaning both questioning our independence, but also suspending the consequence that questioning act on our obligation to others. Bernstein. Responsibility action decision here and automatically at least temporarily suspend questioning others and submit an action on commitment with our modes of action commitment. This is displayed by gesturing in opposite directions. We cannot escape from responsibility and obligations that are thrust upon us by the other, can our own contingency, we can never know, or control when we are called to respond. We must always be to prepare to confront new unpredictable responsibilities. You can have the card at responsibilities.
Is there any?
Yeah.
Are leaks of like tax holdings or like tax evasion, are those things legal?
I don't. Yeah.
Okay,
like people,
so
I mean, like people leak information.
like it is legal for a person to tell the IRS that like someone is evading like a tax, like or is like is committing tax evasion, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so why do journalists get subpoenaed then?
So journalists often get subpoenaed because like the government feels it's necessary to know.
Right, so journalists only, like, they would only get subpoenaed in cases where, like, the information being released is, like, committed, is, like, a crime, and therefore, is information being committed is, like, a crime, and therefore they would need to identify, like, who the source is in order to prosecute that underlying source. If the information being released is, in fact, legal, what necessity, like, when will the government, like, subpoena journalists?
Okay, I'm not sure if I totally understand your question, but if you look at the Obermeyer card, it gives you empirical evidence of how, like, people who leaked, like, whistleblowers who leaked information related to the Panama Papers were, like, their whole lives were put at risk because there aren't protections for those kinds of whistleblowers.
Okay, so who subpoenaed the journalists to find out what these sources were? Like, these whistleblowers, like, came out, like, with their identities, like, public, right? And, like, that was why they were put at risk. If these sources don't want anonymity, or even if they do go to journalists, like, when are these journalists subpoenaed in order for them to reveal their sources?
I think that
I don't understand how your app is inherent.
Okay, I think you're confused about, like, whether the app is about subpoenaing or whether, like, leaks are, like encouraged. So, like, the app doesn't talk about, like, this Obermeyer card doesn't talk about whistleblowers being subpoenaed or, like...
It's not whistleblowers being subpoenaed. The only reason why journalists...
The argument from the Obermeyer card is about how whistleblowers aren't protected. So, like, it gives you examples of how...
okay, I understand that whistleblowers need to be protected. Why does that need to be done through journalists? Because if a whistleblower can go to a journalist and say, like, keep my name
the end of
secret...
the card says that this treatment is a signal to others who might come forward. You may be ostracized, sued, imprisoned, ridiculed, or intimidated. So if reporters have a privilege to protect the identity of their sources,
so let's say in the SPO, I'm a whistleblower on, like, tax evasion, and I tell a journalist, like, keep my name confidential. When is that journalist forced to reveal my name?
Okay, if the government was forced to reveal the whistleblower's name, that would mean that, like, if they were from inside a corporation, they would have their, like, job would be at risk, their, like, family would be at risk because the elites have, like, lots of power.
Sure. You say that rigged tax systems, like, generate wealth inequality. Like, how does the U.S. like spill over into other nations?
Yeah. So the arguments about reform talk about international cooperation. A lot of the, like, people who have offshore accounts are in the U.S., which means that, like, U.S. investigative journalists are...
Trump has, like, defanged the IRS and has, like made it, like, literally impossible to function. How does the app prosecute tax evasion?
Right, so the tax evasion is not, like, the tax evasion the app is talking about doesn't happen in the U.S. It happens in tax havens, which are, like, former colonial states that are currently, like, being exploited by people who have lots of money.
Do you define an absolute right?
No.
Okay. What exceptions?
It's in the plan. It's in the solvency app set.
Okay. And it's nothing, no exceptions more than the one in the solvency app, right? What does crucial importance mean? Yeah, it says in relating to terrorism, etc., and then it says information is of crucial importance. What does that mean?
Like, all of this is key to, like, threats of national security. So if it was, like, of crucial importance and otherwise something bad would happen.
What counts as a threat to national security?
I don't know, like, information that would, like, put the United States at, like, extreme risk. For the safety of the people.
So is the reason why it spills over is because other countries follow our model?
No.
Then how does the app spell?
Okay, so the app, like, works with investigative journalists internationally. So the last part talks about the International Consortium for Investigative Journalists that, like, collect data that the U.S. does not have access to because it could be, like, forced to disclose. So, like, through international cooperation, it creates, like, reforms at the international level that would, like, resolve the issues of tax havens.
What can you do? The order is 3 outline phase. Is it okay?
Yep.
Interpretation. Rights must be absolute. To clarify, reporters must be given the right to protect the identity of all situations, no exceptions. Rosen 15. Why is it normally proper to limit a right of rights or absolute, meaning they can never be limited or open to exceptions? And the Brandsburg decision proves that rights must be absolute. Salkin 11. The combination of justice policy concurrence and serious assembly as many state and state statutes and common law protections and Brunswick decision determines there is no First Amendment basis for absolute right of reporters to refuse to reveal their sources on published information such as protections referred to as privilege and not a right. B violation they specify within the B violation they specify that they have a national security exception, which means that the right isn't applied in all instances. C standards 1 limits affirmative can create infinite reporters. Privilege with the small exception to applying the right limits are key because in order to conduct massive successive strategic iterations of argument production, presentation, review, while engaging in debates about the same core issue, challenge students to innovate and adapt their arguments based on feedback from opponents and judges. Immense educational benefits are lost when only a few debates about each case and be private nuanced research requires a safe plan develop into a large case. This results in shallow debates and pushes argumentation to the fringes to find broad thesis that disagrees with everything. 2 is ground extending right to protect confidential source in certain circumstances kills negative ground. Things like the national security dissent no longer apply. They can pick an infinite amount of different permutations of source situations like protecting investigative reporters except when drug dealers sell opiates or journalists except when information is tantamount to national security, each of which can de-link from neg dissents and critiques. The ground loss kills clashing neg generics to reach the core of the topic. Vote on fairness. The judge needs to enforce competitive equity to evaluate the winner. In education, the game is valuable since it teaches about the topic and other portable skills. Use competing interests to set norms on the topic for clashing. Reasonability is arbitrary, invites judgment, invention kills fairness, and no RBMT because affirmed to choose the one he seats. A stop running chills abuse checking. Next up. Democrats win the midterms, are fueled by opposition to the GOP Congress refusal to rein in Trump, sufficient to flip the House bill of 910. Ahead of the midterm voters say what I want a Congress that will rein in Trump by 58 to 34%. Democrats enjoying 11-point advantage. 7-point will be enough to regain the House. That would be if the current where GOP serves as a backstop for Trump, refusing to meaningful oversight. Trump stands as a major drag on the GOP. The Republicans know they will be exceedingly vulnerable, even as Americans feel confident about the economy. Trump's approval rating remains dismal, as GOP profit half the voters who are all beat about the economy still disapprove of the president, but only because they are the only party checking on Trump. The app allows GOP incumbents to jump ship, and independents are key because the affirmative is essentially perceived as something that is a check on Trump, which allows sources to report on things. Things like Trump's tax evasions and tax returns all prove that the affirmative is directly linked to Trump and is viewed as an action against him. Sergeant 9-4, the GOP-held district Democrats need to win solid majority of voters want a Democrat that has to act as a check on Trump, as opposed to a Republican-controlled Congress supporting Trump's agenda. The anti-Trump backlash we've seen among suburban, college-educated, and independent voters trying to want a check on Trump, check by 63 to 27. That could loom large because many districts are keyed in suburban and college-educated ones, and the plan saves incumbent Republicans by appearing to be a meaningful restraint on Trump. Brownson 918. Each time defendants may read the back themselves to whom the GOP leaders are sitting in an unmistakable sign a signal to voters, so long as Republicans hold the majority will not constrain the president. Republicans are facing elevated turnout among Democratic partisans eager to constrain Trump. The refusal of challenging hands that risk for Republicans. The reports that to persuade less partisan voters that they need a Democratic House to impose any limits. In almost all swing districts, you can't get a 50% with just base voters. The threshold requires crossover so that voters prefer constraints. And a Dem win signals to allies that Trump foreign policy is an aberration, prevents complete abandonment. Bacon 18. How will the world react if Republicans maintain control? Trump will claim credit. Who will be emboldened. The American public has ratified Trump's domestic and foreign policy approach. Leaders like Merkel may more forcefully distance themselves for leaders who have found reassurance that this is a temporary aberration. Be an argument for starting to recalculate that a nuclear war occurs. We get quick repudiation of Trump is key to check. Zelensky 18. Trump's NATO bashing surprise no one. The U.S. is paving more as a feature. This strategy has ensured the absence of grid power conflict and nuclear war. It ensures a permanent U.S. military hegemony over Eurasia. The hegemony serves to call previously intractable regional rivalry so successful that Americans now see peace, unity, prosperity, and stability as Europe's natural trade. This is an illusion. Massive power. The U.S. exercise of pacified and unified Europe. The disorder is an empire because it's more humane than any empire that preceded it. The liberal democracy traded freely, neither go to war with each other nor the United States. Trump's refusal to protect allies, provoking regional arms races is an invitation to adventurism for forbidden only world of liberal democracy can be peaceful and prosperous. Be unrolling of the order. The U.S. will proceed. The world will soon neither be peaceful nor prosperous. They should give. The story should give peaceful nor prosperous. And also, Dem solve the aft. Cheeto 10-3. The story should give Democrats a way to bring the issue of tax enforcement in from the cold and weaponize. And multiple polls have shown that more than 60% of the population favors higher taxes on the wealthy. Tax the rich and no-brainer of Democratic campaign slogans. And Democrats emphasize plans to re-empower the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, allow the IRS to investigate companies and rich individuals who, like the Trumps, flout the country's laws, tax laws in the name of supporting wealth. And Trump, next up, Trump has paused trade war escalation now on his own terms, but he can restart at any moment. Even 914, Trump can impose tariffs, but so far he hasn't. Seems unlikely that Trump will pull a trigger on new tariffs. Trump goes ahead and quintuple the amount of Chinese imports subject to new tariffs at $250 billion. Markets may be unprepared. Pausing the Trump trade war certainly doesn't mean they're over, and we've already read, and Trump thinks he can fight off the loss from establishment GOP by appealing to his base. It causes an increased tariffs at China in response. Reigns 823. Therefore, Trump's scandal home seems especially likely to influence conduct abroad. Trump's was worsening. He'll be ever more beholden to his base. The Trump doesn't know that his diehard support among the solid bloc is what keeps the GOP members of Congress behind him. So he will look for ways of energizing that base via foreign policy that can be imposing tariffs on China. Trump is likely to calculate that Republicans will not revolt, and ramping up the trade war collapses the global economy and leads to war. Down to 821, China's economy is the greatest economic bubble in history. Both can no longer soak up this excess production capacity. We bring in the trade war. This would tip China's economy into a very severe downturn. Trade war would represent a major turning point, could trigger an economic crisis. Would also do a great deal of damage to the U.S. economy. 25% tariffs. The inflation is likely to spike. Interest rates will shoot higher. And the scenario could throw the world into a Great Depression and an outright war. The credit contraction would throw the U.S. into severe recession. Proves that it's better. This will is better. And also, on their arguments, one, the United States has no jurisdiction on tax evasion, which means that even if reporters do collaborate on certain issues, there's no the U.S. doesn't have jurisdiction to protect them in the first place. Also, this app is an inherent cross-sex. They could not explain in cross-sex why journalists would be subpoenaed in the first place. Even if confidentiality is vital, the sources in the SWO can literally just request it from journalists, and they will be binded to it. And then also, like, their plan doesn't solve for journalists just revealing the sources anyways. And the only reason a journalist would have to reveal their sources if they get subpoenas, but insofar as they have not talked about subpoenas at all or why they would be getting subpoenaed right now, it proves that the app doesn't happen, which means that it just gets circumvented. Also, their arguments on tax corruption and stuff don't apply because Trump has already defanged the IRS, and which means that even if they learn about the types of tax evasion that happen, there's still like things like even about the tax evasion that happen, they're not able to prosecute these people who are actually like committing these things or gather enough evidence to fight them in court because these people are in fact very rich, which means that things like seizures of monetary assets are not able to happen, which means that they don't actually solve. And also, there's a very like low chance that the international committees actually corroborate because as our evidence indicates, there are already strained relations between foreign countries, which means that they won't corroborate, especially on things like tax evasion, which don't even pose that much of a threat. Trump also is known to like evade taxes and also like avoid paying his taxes, which proves that he would not be willing in order to collaborate with other countries on this. They just don't solve, and a very low risk of the app means that you should just vote on the dissent process. Yeah.
On the theory, did you read the violation as it's written in the doc?
Yeah, I also just read like the underlying portion too. If you want me to like send a.
What's the underlying portion?
It's like I just finished the sentence too.
Like
I didn't read less, I read more.
Of the card?
Yeah, I read more of the card.
Let's go to.
Sorry. I just like got really busy. So.
You okay?
Yeah, I don't think I ate enough.
Do you want me to go back?
Oh, no, it's okay. I just
I promise.
Yeah, that's fine.
Can you sit down?
You sure you're good?
Mm-hmm.
Ready?
Mhm.
On the dissad, so can you explain the link chain?
Sure. Which one? The midterm dissad?
Just like yeah.
Okay.
Are there two dissads?
Yeah, there are two dissads.
Where does it start? It's not in the doc.
It's like it starts after like Trump is paused a trade war is a separate dissad.
What card is that? Okay.
Yeah.
So can you explain the link in the first dissad?
Yeah, sure. So the midterms dissad essentially says that Dems will win the midterms right now because the reason why voters are voting for Democrats is because centrist right-leaning voters are supporting Democrats because they're the only party that is checking Trump. However, because the app allows GOP incumbents to appear as if they are checking Trump, they like these center like right-leaning voters only need like that excuse in order for it to appear that Republicans are in fact checking Trump. Therefore, they jump ship. And in competitive districts where that is especially important among suburban college-educated voters, it flips the elections, and so Democrats lose the House.
Why does the app mean that the Republicans check Trump?
Oh, sure. So the app is essentially perceived as an action against Trump because it allows for him to, basically the policies that he has enacted against journalists is, they're protected, which means that it's a form of checking Trump, but also because, it is perceived as, this plan is enacted in order to, get things like, tax evasion, which, Trump has been accused of in the past. shows that like it is in fact like a check on Trump, especially since of his media bashing.
Do any of your cards say that like the plan specifically with the journalist privilege is a check on Trump?
No, but like we made that analysis.
Okay. Let's go to the next ad.
Mhm.
Can you explain that one to me?
Sure. So the Newman card indicates that like Trump has paused trade war escalation right now, but he can start it up at any moment. And he thinks that like the way that he fights off like actions that oppose his like previous policies is by appealing to his base, and the way that he invigorates his base and is like trying to shore up support among GOP incumbents is by enacting a trade war.
Okay. So like as a response to the ad, I'll start that. So like I get 5, right?
Yep.
So like as a response to the app, which like makes Trump's base mad, it's checking Trump then like starts to take more to Rally's base. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's to like shore up support among his base and like in order to make sure that Republicans will not revolt against him.
Okay.
Like it's not because of his base, but it's because of incumbents.
Okay, like it's because he needs to do it.
Yeah.
going to be theory, then the app, then the trade board disad, then the other disad.
Okay, sounds good.
So we're ready? Do you want me to send it? It's just like animated stuff. I might not need all of it.
Yes.
Counterinterpretation. We can defend a qualified privilege if we have a solvency advocate. The standards are one, topic literature. Literally nobody writes about an absolute privilege. They can't pigeonhole the app into something that literally no one invents. This is key to real world education because if actual policies are qualified, then the app being a qualified privilege means that we're learning more about the topic on their cards about Brandenburg. This card doesn't say that overturning Brandenburg would have to be qualified privilege. It says that the court couldn't find a basis for an absolute privilege. This means that the app would not be unconstitutional. Then the second standard is reciprocity. It's key to check back on picks if the next round's a piece of picks. The qualified privilege, the app can never win. And then on their standards are on ground. There's a topic with no behavioral resistance. The negative force me to defend this takes away all left ground. Then on limits, interpretive S3 is stupid. We should instead look to having in-depth educational debate about actual policies in the app is modeled after actual policy to see the solvency advocate that's modeled in real law. You can have whole round debates all the time. Multiple tournaments that way. Then go to the app. Extend the AC. Currently, wealthy views consolidated by the elite and held in offshore bank accounts reform tax evasion. This increases centralizing power, especially wealthy, flooding, colonials, and neophiles, and this deriving political instability. The AC software and coalition on both ends, which achieves structural goals through leaks to global, maintaining sustained political best tax reforms, making people paying their taxes in fear of leaks, incriminating them, and forming international political and journalistic coalitions which push for structural reforms. All of the responses on case are speculative defense, which means you can't vote on any of them. First, he says that it doesn't solve for journalists revealing the sources anyways. This is literally like in the status quo, journalists also can reveal sources, which means that this does not take out the app because this is not this doesn't take out any of the app solvency. The app rather gives privileged journalists to protect the identity of whistleblowers, which encourages whistleblowers to come forward. They say that we don't talk about subpoenas happening now, which means that the app doesn't solve anything. But just because other apps talk about subpoenas doesn't mean that's the only thing that our reports would be useful for. You can look at the Obermeyer card about how whistleblowers are imprisoned and their jobs are put at stake, which means that they're not willing to come forward. But if their identity is protected by the reporter's privilege, that means that they'll be more willing to come forward and more leaks like the Panama Papers will happen. We also have empirical solvency of how whistleblowers who came forward through the Panama Papers and the Paradise Papers led to actual change in policy and reform in order to change things. This means that the app has empirical basis for our solvency. Then he says that Trump has already defaced the IRS, which means that they can't prosecute tax evasion. But no, we're talking about tax evasion that's happening in offshore accounts, which means that people hold their money in offshore shell accounts and don't pay taxes in those countries, which means that those countries who are former colonial states who are become tax havens because they want to encourage economic growth, are actually their economic growth is stunted by the elites who are exploiting their resources, which means that we're not talking about prosecuting people in the U.S., but rather the reforms would take place would eventually reform tax havens so that they don't support the wealthy. Then he says that tax evasion isn't that big of a deal, but you can look to our harms evidence about how tax evasion supports neo-colonialism and neo-feudalism. And then he says there's low change in international cooperation happens, but that's not true. We have evidence that international cooperation did happen after the Panama Papers, and also our evidence indicates that we need sustained political buzz in order for reforms to happen, which is why the app is key. He also concedes our all-sub card, which says that we saw through naming and shaming when it's leaked that people have lots of money that's heading offshore accounts to incentivize people to not evade taxes because there's fear of extortion. Then go to the disads. On trade war, one, turn confidential sources can whistleblow within the Trump White House in order to stop a trade war. This is key for the app solvency. Two, Trump gives the app plan gives Trump more flack to say that the media is the enemy. To say that the media is the enemy of the people, which gets the GOP Republicans on his side, because when Trump says lots of things like this, Republicans like to agree with him, which means that the GOP ends up on his side, and the link to this doesn't happen. Then on the second dissad, there's no reason why the app plan triggers a Republican win. There's no specific instance of why a journalist privilege would trigger this. Then turn, Trump will claim credit for app solvency, which creates more jobs and wealth equality, which helps him and Republicans for the midterms. This means that you should prefer high quality impact. If there's a contention of the link, that means that that would mean that you don't give the high impact the same sort of weight because the link might not be true.
No one can match me.
One room camera.
They were pretty recent.
2015.
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
yeah.
There was no RBI claim. Yeah. But do you know the month?
No.
Somebody. For some reason, my ego has disappeared. Yeah. Like I'm just like trying to I'll just find it.
It's
I don't know what happened. It's there will be midterm space and then T and then T's.
okay, midterms.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
The app is an electoral disaster. Dems enjoy a lead right now and set to win the House come this November, but the affirmative hurts campaign strategy and decimates the lead. Democrats are only winning because of the party that checks Trump. The app allows Republicans, especially those in competitive districts, to jump ship and appear to strengthen media protections to allow for more leaks and confidential sources. The plan will be perceived this way. It directly opposes Trump's attacks on the media and shields journalists and their sources from Sessions and his sources from Sessions and things like increased tax evasion. And any evidence that they've read isn't specific to swing voters. Clearly, strong Democrats or strong Republicans will vote by party affiliation, but it's the swing voters that we've identified, suburban, college-educated voters that matter. Democrats losing key races and allowing Republicans to take over the House again sends a strong signal to our allies that Trump is not an exception, but rather the norm. Our allies are on the edge right now, but the plan ensures that they distance themselves more forcefully, abandoning things like NATO, which prompt regional and European arms races, and an adventurous period, all of which guarantee nuclear war and extinction. This outweighs and turns against one. Extinction is irreversible and prevents any hope of future value, which means that it's in our interest to preserve the human race and time frame, and we outweigh on time frame as well, because as soon as the midterm elections happen, that's literally all that foreign leaders are waiting for to happen in order to see if the Democrats will, in fact, win the House and prove that Trump is the exception, or Republicans win and prove that Trump is the norm, which means that as soon as the midterm elections happen, it happens instantaneously, which means that it prompts Putin to shore up regional arms races and things like that, which also guarantee extinction in an immediate time frame, and Republicans will, it also turns the case because Republicans will be worse for tax evasion taxation and prosecution that's clearly just been proven with Trump's administration right now, where he's defanged the IRS and hurt the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, all of which prove that he isn't focused on actually collaborating on preventing tax evasion or stopping these people who violate the law. All of these things prove that the dissent outweighs the case. They're on their arguments. One, they say that it's not actually, when they say they talk about how, like, Republicans will win right now. However, no, our evidence indicates that Democrats are holding, like, a 7-point lead in these competitive districts right now, but that lead can easily be decimated by just proving that the Republicans are, in fact, checking Trump, and that's proven that they are, in fact, checking Trump. Republicans would take credit for the app. Republicans are already pushing a shield law and have framed it as opposition to Trump. Wong 18, Justice Department Secret sparked one of Trump's GOP allies to say he'll pursue legislation to protect journalists. Jordan said a shield law is critical for press under a First Amendment play a vital role in checking tyranny. Jordan said is another example of executive branch overreach. We hadn't pushed it. Now is a good time. Jordan said Jordan and his team with Lou, a vocal Trump critic. They haven't been able to pass this bill right now, but the affirmative ensures that GOP incumbents are able to jump ship and pass the plan. And it's also in these specific competitive districts. The data 727. Most of the competitive races are in districts where centrist Republican incumbents are tolling to distance themselves from him, which means that it's about the centrist right voters who just use this excuse in order to jump ship. They say, she says that my opponent says that they'll take credit for solvency, and however, like, that's our point, right? Like, yes, it helps them. The plan is popular. That's the link to midterms. So if Trump does take credit for the app, that just proves the link even more, which means that they've conceded the link that Republicans will in fact win the midterms. And it's not about Trump. The internal link to this dissent is not Trump popularity, but rather Republican popularity bet on the trade war dissent. They say that they'll stop trade war. Sure, but we'll concede this, but they can't stop the pullout because because if Republicans win the House, the top Republican leaders are those that consistently support Trump, which means it's viewed as this is Trump becoming the norm, which means that even internal advisors can't actually check Trump. And so even if they check the trade war, they can't check things like foreign leaders pulling out, which means that these arms races do in fact happen. And they make the argument that the app can just say that it's the enemy of the people. However, no Republican action against him, or the Republican action against him with the passage of the shield law is in an effort to delegitimize his criticisms of the media, which means that it's actually protecting the press. So Trump can't actually criticize and claim that they are an enemy of the people. This argument also wasn't very well explained, which means you shouldn't allow new 2AR extrapolations because we don't get a 3 and R to respond to them on. We don't get any 3 and R to respond to them on T. We'll concede their counterintuitive. However, there's no RBIs, which means that you can't vote here, which means that you can only vote on substance, on case. They've conceded that Dems solved the app right now, which means that there's literally zero reason to do the app. There wasn't a single reason why this vote doesn't solve the app, which means that literally any risk of the dissent means you auto-negate because this vote solves the app. There's just no reason why it's necessary. But even then, it's not. Even then, there's no adherency on this app. They weren't able to prove, like, if I, as a whistleblower on tax evasion, went to a journalist right now and told them not to reveal, there would be no person forcing that journalist to reveal, which is what subpoenas are used for. And because they have not proven that journalists are in fact subpoenaed or forced to reveal their sources, it means that this flow solves the app. There is no inherency. That just proving that confidentiality is good is not sufficient to win. That there should be a shield law, or that a shield law does in fact solve. If anything, it says that there should be increased whistleblower protections, but that's not the same thing as passing a shield law, which doesn't actually protect those whistleblowers, but rather just prevents journalists from being subpoenaed. But if they're not being subpoenaed right now, there's just no reason for it. There's also, you conceded that there's no jurisdiction on these offshore shelling accounts, which means that even if they do collaborate, there's no way that the affirmative can get involved or pass info. Also, their only response to that, they will not collaborate because people like Trump and their top Republicans are not interested in collaborating on tax evasion, is that because of the Panama Papers. However, the Panama Papers was under the Obama administration, not Trump, which proves that a recent administration shift are all reasons why they would not in fact collaborate right now. And leaks happen right now, which means that should be sufficient to be sufficient to check any of the things that they talk about. The reason why the people who released the Panama Papers were under threat was because they came and revealed their identity willingly. Dems solved the app. It's on their thing. So any risk of dissent means you make it.
What's the implication of the long card?
It just proves that that the app is viewed as a check against Trump.
So does that mean that if Republicans check Trump, swing voters see it as they don't have to vote
No, the implication is that like there are centrist right voters in competitive districts, and that if Republicans check Trump, then they'll vote Republican.
Okay. Okay, the order's gonna be case, trade war, midterms. Okay. Is everyone now? Everyone ready?
Yeah.
On the app, they have conceded explanation of app solvency from the overbuyer card and also the all-sub card, which means that these still conceded in both the NT and the NR, which means that the app is not only solving by creating this international coalition, but also solves through through naming and shaming, and the fear of extortion is enough to deter people from having offshore accounts in the first place, which means that there's already solving for wealth inequality. Then they conceded that the overbuyer card proves that the app is inherent. We've extrapolated how in the world of the status quo, whistleblowers came forward to report on the Panama Papers, but then their lives were threatened and their jobs were put at risk. And then also gives you empirical evidence of how other instances of this have been true. Also, you can look to the explanation of the international cooperation argument that came out of the 1AR from the Bien and Bjorkstein card, which says that which gives you an explanation of why U.S. journalists would be excluded from international consortiums of journalism because there's fear that they could be forced to reveal to disclose identity of sources. This is the articulation of subpoenas. While we don't use the word subpoenas in the card, the forcing disclosure is a subpoena. This card is extended in the 1AR through the extension of solvency. Then they seem to concede no jurisdiction, but no, we are talking about international consortiums and international forms to solve tax havens. All of his responses are purely defensive, which means that there's no way you can vote on them. The app is definitely inherent. Also, he's conceded that we need sustained political buzz in order to see actual forms, which means that even if leaks did create change in status quo through the Panama Papers, that's not enough to lead to this. That doesn't mean that the app is inherent. That means that the app is even more necessary because we need sustained political buzz to create reforms. Go to the trade design. He concedes the first turn. He says that confidential sources. That means that confidential sources can whistleblow within the Trump administration to stop a trade war. This is offense for us. It means that if you believe that trade war is a really big impact in the round, that we outweigh because we stop a trade war from happening. He's also conceded that all of our solvency for solving for neocolonialism and wealth inequality are really big impacts that are happening right now because we've proven that empirically tax havens are exploiting poor countries. Then he says that this means we can't stop the flow that are still an arms race, but you can extend the second turn that it gives Trump more flex to say the media is bad, which gets GOP Republicans on his side. He says that it's viewed as Republican action against Trump, but this isn't a respond to the turn. The argument is that Trump uses the media as a foil to say that the media is attacking him, which also is not what the play does. These are two turns on case, which means that if you which means that this would weaken the strength of the link, means that the impact doesn't have a good chance of happening. Go to the next. This side, you can extend the turn that Trump will claim credit for absolvency for creating more jobs and solving wealth inequality. They said that this is viewed as the plan as Republicans checking Trump, but no, there is no explanation as to why the passage of a journalist privilege is evidence of checking Trump. Our app is not about checking the government. It's about checking elites who have offshore accounts. Trump does not have offshore accounts as far as we know. This means that there's no strength of link to this app.